Hi, uh, this is Diane Stepro. I'm the genealogy librarian at Jeffersonville Township Public Library. And tonight I'd like to talk to you about beginning genealogy. Last week I did beginning genealogy 1, and we dealt with finding census records and what you can find on those. And tonight I'd like to look a little bit into some other records you can find, at least for the 20th century, and into how to organize what you find. As soon as you get a few census records, you're going to find that, gee, you have to have something to do with all this stuff. So that's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to be sharing my screen and talking through most of the presentation. So before I do that, let me point out the chat. Down in the bottom of your window, you will either see like a cartoon word bubble, or the words more. If you don't see the cartoon word bubble, you'll need to click on the words more and click on the word chat to see what's in the chat. And I have already provided a bunch of things in chat that should help you a bit. 3 links. One is for free charts and forms, which is what we're going to look at first. A second is for legacyfamilytree.com, which is a place where you can take classes, and we're going to take a really brief look at that. And then familysearch.org, which is a place where you can find things, and we'll talk more about that, but it's a place where you can get all kinds of genealogical information, and it's free. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, so you won't be seeing me anymore, but you can still reach out to me if you're online with me by saying something or typing into the chat. And here goes. We're going to share screen. Let me just step over here to the free charts, and I put this link in your chat, supported ancestry.com article, free charts and forms. That is a place where you can find places to put everything. So say you find all of the information about you start with your dad, and you find all the information about your grandparents and your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents, and maybe you go even further than that and you need to keep going. And I think that's very possible. Within a few years of doing genealogy, I had some lines back to 10 greats pretty securely, because there are a surprisingly large number of records still around. So you want to, when you're starting out, you probably want to do something besides keep an online tree. In fact, I think I've been trying online trees, and I'm going back to doing it all in print, because it's just too easy for things to get erased and muffled up online. And so I am using this kind of chart again and printing everything out. So you printed out a bunch of census records, and you found from those somebody's complete name. You put their complete name here, and their spouse here. And I want to say this could be male or female, but usually once we get going, we put the male on the upper line and the woman on the lower line. You can reverse that. I don't really care, and nobody else really should either. But what does matter is genealogists are particular about women's names. So you're going to put their first name at the beginning. So like, my name is Diane. And then you're going to put their surname, their family name, in capital letters. And you probably want to use pencil, because you find out you're wrong about things all the time in genealogy. And then the date they were born, the place they were born, the date they were married, the place they were married, the date they died, and the place they died. Of course, that's sometimes for living generations. You leave that unfilled for a while. Now, if it's a woman and she is married, in most United States cultures, she will have changed her name to her husband's last name. well, you're a genealogist, you really need to know the name she had before she married. So you're going to put her name as first name, middle name, maiden name in all capital letters. And people will have to guess her married name from the spouse she's with. Unfortunately, these charts don't give you many places for additional spouses. I usually pencil them in at the bottom, and if needed, make a separate chart that shows their relationship to their other spouse and maybe their other spouse's family relationships. You'll find that peculiarly enough, a lot of people marry either people that are related when they remarry, or people that have a lot in common with the other people they've married with. So those charts can be helpful. We'll talk more about friends, neighbors, and associates later, but the fan group, friends, associates, neighbors, is something that you'll develop by following all the marriages of some people, and some people have a lot of them. But that's one chart that you can do. It's also a good idea to do a family group sheet. You could do any of these you want, but the two that are most important are the ancestral chart and the family group sheet. And that also will help you with friends, associates, and neighbors, the friend group. So prepared by is going to be your name, and address, and in many cases you're going to put like, this is my great grandfather or whatever at the top, but you don't have to. You're going to correspond it to the ancestral chart number. So say if it's your if the husband in this family group is your father, you put your father's name here. And probably that would be ancestral chart number 1 or 2, because most people start with themselves or their parents. So it's going to be a high number. But as you do more and more ancestors, you're going to have more and more numbers out here. So you can get them together quickly. You'll put the chart number there. And then you give all of the husband's information. Then you give all the wife's information for this family. And then you give information about all of the children. And if there are multiple marriages for one person, again, you're going to have to add multiple sheets. And then the children from those marriages, and so on. And these are really a great help, because a lot of times you will find you just cannot find something that you need. Say you won't be able to find out who the mother is for your great-grandfather. Who's your great-great-grandmother? You won't be able to find it out from any of great-great-grandpa's records, but if you know all his brothers and sisters, you might find it in one of theirs. And that happens a lot. I don't know how many times going out sideways to other family members has helped, especially with the type of records we're going to talk about tonight, birth, marriage, and death. It's really pretty remarkable. So that's the different types of charts you can use. And I'm going to close these windows now, but I really recommend that you print them out and use them and take care of them on paper. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was Legacy Family Tree. Legacy Family Tree webinars is a really great way to find out different you see the webinars link up there at the top. You can find out different things about genealogy. They have a huge library. Before we go into the library, I want to talk about an upcoming April event. They have an annual 24-hour genealogy webinar. They were doing these online classes long before COVID. They're great. They even have classes for you know, from the beginning level all the way up to becoming a professional genealogist level. You can view a lot of them for free. Subscription is pretty modest. I think it's around $45 a year. I haven't checked in a while. I've had one on and off, but it's a very cheap way to learn about a lot of different topics that may not be offered at your local library. Of course, we're always ready and willing to answer questions, but I'm not so good on, say, Norwegian genealogy, but they have classes on Norwegian genealogy, and so that would help you. And what's upcoming in April, I think that was the 8th and 9th, there we go, 8th and 9th. They have all of these webinars kind of around the clock on all kinds of different topics. So here's the Eastern United States time for all the topics. And here's the list of topics. They have world-class speakers. There's Cindy Engel, who does Cindy's List, which is a really great genealogy site. There's just really, really top flight people talking. And they have all kinds of different topics here. And I believe since it's the 24 hours of genealogy, I believe this one will be 24 classes. And you don't have to go to them all. If you register, no one will knock on your door and get on your case if you take a long lunch break or something. But that's cool. And if you go into the webinars and go into the webinar library, you can type in something that you're interested in, say, right now I'm doing a lot of Southern genealogy because I have found, and none found. Okay, let's try Virginia. I have found some Virginia relatives back at the time of the Revolution and before, and then they all moved out here, which is why I had no idea I had Virginia relatives until recently. But here are a list of webinars, and so I could click on any of those. Basics of Virginia Research, I might need that one. Probably a good thing to review, even if I've done it already. I might find I've missed a few things. And so this one, it says you have to log in, so it's not free, but a lot of them are. It's always worth taking a look. And if you do have some money to spend on your genealogy hobby, this is a good place to go. And I found I've actually saved money by having taken some classes because I didn't end up traveling to places, because I found out from the class how I could get things free online. And I found places where I could get things free where I might have otherwise paid for subscriptions. So it's worth it, definitely worth it. And most classes do focus on free resources. Let me take a drink just a second. Wasn't too noisy and slurpy. So to the meat of today's program, what we're going to look at is birth, marriage, and death records. Now, a couple things to get started. Some states are just difficult, and you're not going to find a lot of birth, marriage, and death records online. And with 50 states and odd assorted territories, I can't give you a compendious answer in a short half hour to 45-minute online course as to what you're going to find for each state. I will tell you that Indiana, where I am, is great. They put almost everything online. You can get even more at Family Search, which is where I am leading you right now, and it has a free site, than you could at Ancestry. And Family Search is extremely easy to use. and extremely free. So I'm going to have to sign in here in a minute. I'm really sure it might be already signed in, but if you find that you aren't signed in, I am signed out. And so if you find that you need to sign in, and you never have before, you're going to have to come here. When you use this URL, you'll come to this page that says sign in or create an account. You'll have to create an account. It's really easy. If you've created any accounts before, I don't think you'll have any trouble, but do give me a call if you've run into problems. And I'm going to just sign in, and it already knows my information. And I probably had clicked that before, keep me signed in for 2 weeks. So it brought me right in. Now, right from the beginning, you can search records, just search records like that. And that's all I'm going to do tonight, is just a really basic record search. And I think I'm going to start with my mother. These are public records. And you want to go kind of broad with the dates on Family Search. So even though I know what year her birth is, that might not be quite right in the record. So I'm going to go for a 10-year span. And I've selected birth here. I could select anything there. Marriage, residence, death, if she's alive, in case she's watching this. Hi, Mom. And her name's it's her married name. And there are reasons you want to search with a married name sometimes. But I think I will probably get very few hits this way. I might be wrong. Oh, yep, public records. So that's one thing, a little bit out of what we're looking for today, but public records, those are probably all just directory listings. But here's from historic obituaries. And this must be abstracted from my grandmother's obituary. So here's a lot of good information. And obituaries are one kind of death record. So mentioned in the record of Nawana Schultz, that's my grandmother. And it tells all these things about my mother. And it tells who both her parents are. So that was one good record that I got from her married name. And the reason I started with that is I want to also show you what happens when I change this to her maiden name. I'll get slightly different records. But for a woman who's been married, you probably need to do both married name and maiden name. And if she's been married a bunch of times, you're probably going to have to search her under every name. Ooh. Interesting. Got a lot of things that aren't her. And I am doing this real time. Interesting. So I might have to go through a lot of records here to get to the right person. I might have to add some more events, marriage, residence, and so forth. It usually pays to go broad at first and then narrow things down, just to see what happens. Oh, technical errors. Well, that happens with a computer all the time. Let me see if we can just update and get that to go. There we go. And I'm still getting a lot of people that aren't her. Interesting. Interesting. Well, let's turn to someone else. Let's see. How about, now you can't go back too far with these records. This is, I believe I said already, but if I didn't, you're only going to go back to 1919 in many cases with birth, marriage, and death records, because birth, marriage, and death records just didn't exist in the entire country prior to the national identification laws that came out in 1919. Some states implemented them earlier. In fact, there are birth, marriage, and death records going back into the 1600s in Massachusetts and some of the rest of New England. But you get into the South, and there are southern states that really were late adopters, and we're still having issues adopting birth, marriage, and death records after the national birth, marriage, and death records laws were passed. And so some of them, even though they have them on the books, you might find there are some people that are overlooked. So we're going to have to pick somebody who was born more recently. Maybe I should just start a new search here. Okay, I'm going to do my grandfather. Actually, let me do my grandmother. Once again, I'm going broad. I'm not 100% certain whether they married in Knox County. I believe so, but I'm going to leave that blank for now. Okay, and here we have what's probably a census, because it has a lot of relationships in it. We've already talked about those. We'll take a look here. Yes, it's the census record. And when I talked about last week, I said always open the record and read the whole thing. But what made me think it was a census without any labels, or that it had sibling names. And that could be useful. But what I'm looking for right now is birth, marriage, and death. Interesting. Well, I might have to narrow it down a little bit more. So how you do that is if you found anything at all, there we go. You at least have a good idea of the date. So this says 1923. Let's go 22 to 24. And maybe we'll get rid of some of these extra people. Okay, there we go. Another census result. And that is it. Boy, this is not going so well tonight. And sometimes it's that way. And you notice there are a lot of pages at the bottom here. I could have gone to one of them, but I'm wanting to show you some specific things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to yet another resource. Right now during the pandemic, Ancestry is being really nice. And if you go to jefflibrary.org, local history, and log on to Ancestry, you'd want to click on this first one here that will ask you to put in a library card number from home. But in the library, I can just click here and go straight in. Ancestry is letting you use Ancestry for free from home if you've got a library card. That is not ordinarily the case. Ordinarily, you would have to pay a subscription fee to use it from home. But it's a really nice perk during the pandemic. It has definitely made librarians very happy. It's currently in effect through June 30th, I believe. And they are updating that regularly until basically until we're told that it's safe for people to gather. I think they're going to continue. And right now it's looking like June may be the end of things, but we'll just have to see. I'm certainly not making any promises there. So in Ancestry, you can go straight into birth, marriage, and death records. And this is in some ways better than Family Search in that the search is a little more powerful. In other ways, it's a bit of a problem. First of all, the money. I don't approve of charging money for genealogy. And second of all, it's problematic because Indiana marriage records, the originals are in Family Search. So I'm not going to find an original marriage record here, but we'll see what we can do about that. Oops. Held that down too long. And it suggests things, which makes things very useful there. There we go. And spouse was Lewis Schultz, my grandfather. And search. And here we go. Death certificates. Death certificates are a gold mine in most cases. Get all kinds of things to use to fill out your ancestry charts. Now you see this, a lot of people just stop when they see this. Oh, look, I have everything all written out. Noana Jane Schultz, and it says after that, Noana Jane Lane. Female, Caucasian, 64, married. Father, Ralph. Mother, Ruth. It's got dates. It's got the spouse's name. And fortunately, this one's pretty much right, but not all of those transcriptions are right. So always go over to and click View and look at the actual image. So it says here, her name, somebody has filled in that her maiden name was Lane. Death certificates for a woman will almost always have their married name. And you can usually figure that out by comparing their married name with their husband's. Of course, there are cases when unrelated people could have the same last name and do sometimes marry. You'll see a lot of Smiths marrying Smiths. But in most cases, you've got a hint there when their first names are the same. That's not the wife's maiden name. So we've got surviving spouse there. He's also the informant who told who her parents were and any other information to the coroner, the medical authority who filled out the death certificate. It tells what they did for a living. It tells where they lived. It tells who their parents were. It should give them their parents' original names, so mother's maiden name. If their parents weren't married, if they were divorced at the time when they died, the death certificate will probably clear that up if the child outlived them, because it will tell who the parents were, whether they're married to one another still or not. It usually tells where they were buried. So you've got the tombstone then, you just have one more step to find that. And a lot of people do really want to find the graves of their ancestors. So a death certificate is a wonderful thing to have. It also can be good. I recently collected lots and lots of death certificates from my mother's family because health records aren't always preserved, and my mother was asked to go to see a geneticist, genetics counselor, to talk about whether or not she had a risk for cancer. We knew her mother had died of cancer, so we were concerned. As it turned out, she didn't have a risk. There were no cancers caused by things that weren't explicable from outside sources, but there were very few cancers in her family. So that was good to know. And that's all listed here, that there was metastatic carcinoma was what killed my grandmother. Good things. Now let's see what else we can find. There's that obituary again. Indiana marriage. Nope, that's not him. My grandparents might have gone someplace else to get married. I am not too sure. Another type of death record is the Social Security index. And there it is, but that's not for my family member. But it's not as useful as it used to be. They've cut down the amount of information in it. Let's go back to Louis and see if we do better. This is my grandfather. He also was born in Knox County, Indiana. I'm going to go just a little wide. Rather than being exact, that's not his exact birth date, but sometimes it's helpful. His father was also named Louis. His mother was Emma Moore. One of those names that you just don't want to work with, like Schultz and Jones, although they are not the end of the world. I've solved all my Schultzes and Joneses and Moores and Holmeses and Williamses and Johnsons and other way too common names. It just took a while. And spouse. Luana Lane. I'm surprised she's not showing up, but she's probably indexed wrong, and that's worth talking about. A lot of times people are indexed wrong. In other words, the person who wrote everything over here in the typed out list that should have been, that they're writing off of the birth certificate or marriage certificate or whatever, has looked at it and it's a weird name, so they spelled it wrong. Or even the original record had it spelled wrong if the family member didn't have a lot of input. My grandpa Louis wasn't too extremely literate, my great grandpa. So when grandpa's birth certificate was filled out, it may be that he didn't have the C put on, or it may be the person who typed all this up, or Schultz, couldn't read cursive. Let's take a look. If it'll load, come on, load. There we go. So, yep, somebody didn't put the C on when this was written out. So, there's Lewis William. There's Louis Schultz and Emma Moore, the parents. Their address, their color, their age. See, they were rather older when they had their last child. I'm a little surprised at that because I know that's not true. 4 children, number of children in this born to this mother, 4 number of children living, 4. She lost 1. And certification of attendance at the birth, a doctor. Don't know that doctor. Not the usual family physician that was that's seen on most of our records, but that's what it is. So that's a birth certificate, and they can be really useful. We learned that Louis is a farmer and Emma is a housewife, and we learned how many siblings to expect. So there should be 3 siblings. If there are 4 children born alive and 4 children still alive, counting that birth. There was a 5th child that died. The first child died. I guess maybe it was just the best of that physician's knowledge. Interestingly, they crossed out female and put male. You notice that? Who knows? Oh, and it also says he's 1 of 4. There's the WPA birth index. You'll only find that for people who were born before the 30s. But they've got things just a little turned around, but that's pretty close. Interesting. Or, well, that's just going to be an index record. We'd have to go, there's a birth record in the county too. Louise, born in 1917, might be the baby that died. I didn't know it had a name, but I know there was one. Find a grave is another kind of death record, although you can't swear by it. The information in Find a Grave is entered by people who are just volunteers, and I have found some major errors. I try not to make them cry, but sometimes I contact people when they really mess up, and I know that they've really messed up, and we try to get things fixed. But yeah, people sometimes affix a big story to somebody who is not the right person but has the right name, because there are lots of people with some names. My Williams family has been like that. Now, looks like I lost my birth, marriage, and death filter. Let's see if we can get a marriage record here. Okay, no such luck. Interesting. Let's drill down one more. Okay. That's not the right Louis Schultz. Well, that's something you've got to be careful of. Common names. You want to just ignore anything that doesn't make sense. Okay. So it's not out there. Let's try to go back a generation and see if we can find a marriage record to show you what you can find out from a marriage record. And that varies throughout the years, but marriage records are older than birth and death records. You should find marriage records for many municipalities going back to the Revolution or before. It can vary a lot, though. But definitely here in Clark County, where I work, we have marriage records going back to the earliest European settlement here. In Knox County, where I'm from, they have marriage records going back into the 1730s, which was the earliest European settlement there. In some places, they didn't keep them so carefully, and in some places, they've been lost. But that they should work. Let's see. Emma was born about 1890. I might have been a year or two before that, but she was born in Knox County. Her parents moved there from Washington County, Indiana. Her father, let's see, more. Trying to remember her father's name, just lost it, but I'm going to leave it blank and put her spouse was Louis Schultz. And there's her death certificate. And we've already seen one of those, and it won't vary much. William Moore, that was her father. Yeah. Remember I said that you won't find the marriage records on Ancestry very often? Well, it looks like that's going to be the case here. So we're going to head back to Family Search. And what what we're going to do is I'm going to open up the death certificate in this pane. And this is something you have to do all the time. And unfortunately, I don't have all my relatives' dates memorized, but she was born in 1891. Okay, and she married Louis Schultz. So I'm going to change it to, we're going to do a new search. And you notice I'm being really lazy about capitalization because I can. I'm going to go broad again, just in case, you know, she might have fibbed a little about her age on a record or something like that. There was a good deal of fibbing about ages. Let's see if we can get away with this without putting everybody. Just got the main person and her husband. There was a great deal of fibbing about ages in the past. Women got younger in the census every year. Men often did too, until they got to be really old, and then they started gaining decades really rapidly so that they could live to be 100 and have a 100th birthday party. People would suddenly go from 80 to 102 in a mere decade. And that was always interesting to me. So here we go. This is going to be a census because I've got a long list of people, I believe. No, it's a marriage, sorry. If I read over here, Indiana marriages. So let's take a look. If you click on the camera, you got to see the image. Yep, it's a marriage record. So on family search, I'm going to have to enlarge it a bit. And up at the top, you know, those people's descendants there. I'll just go with them. Funny how people don't move out of an area. But here we go, Louis Schultz. They ask all kinds of questions at this period. It varies from period to period, but they ask for each one the color of the person, where they were born. Louis was born in Vincennes. Emma was born in rural Knox County. When? There are the dates, 1885 and 1891. So you got the marriage records, you've got the birth dates, and this is a better birth date and a better record of the parents than the death certificate, because who's telling it? Emma told her parents. Louis told his parents. Emma told her birthday. Louis told his birthday. The person answering as informant doesn't always know. If you've got a spouse, you got a good shot. Kids and grandkids, forget it. You could really get a mess from the death certificate, but the death certificate can be a gold mine. The occupation of the person, you know, Emma left it blank. This was 1911 and she was born in 1891. She just got out of high school. She didn't work at all except for farm work outside of the home. Name of parents, Chris Schultz for Louis, and look, his father was born in Germany. Now there's a gold mine. You could get this from a census too, but now I know where his dad was born, that his dad was the immigrant. And from other records, I know his dad immigrated at age 3, spoke an accented English, and never really knew anything but Indiana. And he was a carpenter. The Christian name of mother. Interestingly, Minnie Burring, and elsewhere he says Minnie Burr, and maybe that's a different form of it, or maybe something is wrong. I don't know. Over here, William Moore. The WM is a common abbreviation for Moore. And I've noticed that they usually left off the curve and the E that I think is normal. Hang on. For Moore, but that is an E, kind of a funky E that you saw in from records at that time. He was born in Salem, so that tells me where to look. If I'd looked there earlier, I would have had a much easier time of things. Finding out more about his wife. His occupation is farmer. He lives in Decker. The Christian name of the mother is Alice Ellis, and she always listed herself as Alice, and she gave me so much trouble as a genealogist. But her name was Alice Ellis, but her dad's name was Elliot, and that was another weird story. But she listed it as Ellis in a bunch of places, and it really threw people off on her death certificate, and they gave her father's name, Alice's father's name, wrong. And she wasn't asked her father's name when she did her marriage certificate. And Alice was born in Indiana. As it turns out, Alice was also born in Washington County. It just took me a while to track her down. And I think the confusion was probably because Alice's brothers and sisters did not live in Washington County. They all moved out, and neither did, and most of her cousins and siblings were born in other counties. Is it their first marriage? Well, yes for her. We'd have to look over here. Yes for him. So that's a lot of information, and it just keeps going. Are they feeble-minded? Do they have contagious disease? This was the age of eugenics, when they could refuse to marry people they thought might spread bad genes, which was pretty horrible, the things they did to people. You can see down at the bottom, they've both signed, so you can see their handwriting. I find that amusing because I have a lot of things with her handwriting, and it didn't change over the years. You can see the name of the clerk. You can come down here and possibly find out who married them if you can read the handwriting. Pastor, looks like P. Clausen, pastor of the Lutheran Church. Interesting. They were Methodists later on. So, a lot of information there. Print these things out. You'll see the print button up here. Print out all your records. Record the information you find. You can always make notes at the bottom of the page if there's no room for something interesting you find on the family group sheet or the pedigree chart. But make a note of all of it. Keep it all together. Have fun. Call me if you need me. I'm going to go back to the full screen for just a minute and stop the share. And I'm just going to type my email. Stepro at jefflibrary.org, spelled G Step Row. And I'll be happy to help you with anything that you would like to ask me. And happy ancestor hunting.